Hi guys, here I am. It's Dr. Winterbottom, and we're going to read the Sam chapter. I'm going to try something differently today, something different. This is, instead of a regular slide presentation, this is like an infographic, so the whole thing just is one long thing. All right, so let's get started. In my edition of the book, the Sam chapter starts on page 29 of Seed Folks. I saw people on the sidewalk watching something. I crossed to join them like a cat who smells herring. Men in jumpsuits from the jail, I think, were clearing the lot. Unbelievable. The woman beside me told me the land was for anyone who wanted a garden. Even more unbelievable, the word paradise came out of my mouth. Without thinking, the woman looked at me strange. It's a hobby with me, studying words. I looked at the 3 walls surrounding the lot, then at a garden coming up beautiful, planted there close to the sidewalk. Paradise comes from a Persian word. It means walled park. I made a mistake there. I should say park. Okay. I told the woman that. This time she gave me a little smile. I smiled back. That's my occupation. You've seen fishermen mending the rips in their nets. That's what I do, only with people. I used to try to patch up the whole world. For 36 years, I worked for different groups, promoting world government, setting up conferences on pacifism. Pacifism is like trying to promote peace. Um, Okay. Raising money, stuffing envelopes. Not that I've given up the fight, I've just switched battlefields from the entire planet to this corner of Cleveland. Sometimes I think I've actually had more effect on the world since I retired. And then he talks about how he likes to smile at people, especially all the different people in his neighborhood who are from different cultural backgrounds. I get them looking up at me instead of down or off to the side. I start up conversations in lines and on the bus and with cashiers. People see I'm friendly no matter what they've heard about whites or Jews. And so here, what we're getting is a little detail that sort of implies that Sam is both white and Jewish. And it seems like the author of the book tries to have the different characters who speak in the different chapters be from all different walks of life, right? Okay, so he says, if I'm lucky, I get them talking to each other, sewing up the rips in the neighborhood. I hadn't had a garden since I was a kid. I wanted one now, only this time I was 78 to be exact, and in no condition to dig up the soil. So I hired a teenager, Puerto Rican, who said he knew where he could get a shovel. He knew he'd have to do a good job to be paid. He worked that soil until it flowed through your fingers like silk. I paid him well and offered him a whoopsie, I missed a word. Offered him a row. He wanted to grow marijuana to sell, a real businessman. We discussed this. We finally compromised on pumpkins. After I explained how much he could probably get for them at Halloween, not to mention the advantages of staying out of jail. My other class, we talked about this, and we thought maybe there's a little bit of a stereotype here. Okay, he was new to the neighborhood. We chatted back and forth. We're on page 32 now. Squatting there in the cool of the evening, planting our seeds, a few other people working, a robin singing out strong all the while. It seemed to me that we were in truth in paradise, a small garden of Eden. In the Bible, though, there's a river in Eden. Here we had none, not even a spigot anywhere close by. Nothing. People had to lug their own water in buckets or milk jugs or soda containers. Water is heavy as bricks, trust me. And new seeds have to be always moist. And in all of June, it didn't rain but 4 days. So, one thing I pay attention to as I read this book is the little clues about the passage of time. So, like the robin, that's a reference to spring. And now he's talking about how in all of June it didn't rain but 4 days. So that's like the whole month of June that's gone by, right? The result, people bent over, walking sometimes 3 or 4 blocks, a gallon jug in each hand, complaining about all the time about the water. Mine I had hauled by a third grader with a wagon. The contest I started came later. Water aside, we had other problems. People in the garden told friends and relatives. The lot was big, there was plenty of room, but when newcomers joined, at least at the beginning, they could usually get a spot near people they knew. One Saturday, when the garden was fullest, I stood up a minute to straighten my back, and what did I see? With a few exceptions, the blacks on one side, the whites on another, the Central Americans and Asians toward the back. The garden was a copy of the neighborhood. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. A duck gives birth to a duckling, not a moose. Each group kept to itself, spoke its own language, and grew its own special crops. One man even put up a pole and flew the Philippine flag above his plot. Then there was the garbage. A few well brought up people in the buildings around the lot still used it for a trash can. Just couldn't get out of the habit. They emptied their ashtrays out the window and tossed out all sorts of stuff. One day, a bottle came down like a meteor. A man picked it up and threw it back. Straight through the window it came out of. A minute later, 5 more flew out. Next, I thought to myself, come gunshots. Instead, thank God, it was only shouting. That crazy homeless man, the one who used to sleep on the broken down couch, he also missed the lot, being a dump. He showed up, saw his couch had been taken, and started ripping out people's plants. The police had to come. Some people started worrying, looking ahead to ripe beans and tomatoes and thinking about strangers coming in. That week, a man put chicken wire around his garden, 5 feet high, complete with a little gate and padlock. The week after that, someone built a board fence. Then came the first keep out sign. Then the crowning achievement, barbed wire. God, who made Eden, also wrecked the Tower of Babel by dividing people. From paradise, the garden was turning back into Cleveland. And that's the end of the chapter. And we can talk about this, but there's like a few little references in this chapter that, might make you cringe about how Sam refers to some of the other people in the neighborhood. And we can talk about that. I think the thing to keep in mind is that the author is trying to have each person who speaks, each character, be kind of unique and individual. And in some cases, people are not perfect. They have their little biases, and sometimes the way they talk about people from other cultural groups is not politically correct. Not saying that it's great, but I guess it makes him human. We can talk about this. So anyway, that's the Sam chapter, and there'll be a quiz on this, and we can talk about it during our Collaborate session. Alrighty, thank you.